welcome back. This is the poet Izzy Human with the philosopher Dunamis on this week's episode number 58, Fight for Savings. Please be sure to hit that like button on your way in, and if you like us, consider subscribing and keep up with our episodes on YouTube and give us a follow on X.
And Fightcast is here to empower individuals to live healthier, master their finances, pursue dreams, and inspire others through self-awareness and global impact. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and not financial advice. So, Izzy Human, how you doing this week, man?
I am doing fine. How about that? I'm doing fine. I'm adjusting to a new sleep schedule right now. I've been doing daily content, music content. If you guys have tuned in, you guys know it's been nonstop. I have fully come out of just my hiding of being a foodie. So if you guys are into foodie shorts, jump on my YouTube channel, and the music's there as well. It's been very productive. Shout out to the team as always. And my man, how are you?
I've been doing great. I am settling into the new job, which is taking care of the bills temporarily here.
Hmm.
And I know with all things crypto, that hasn't materialized into a bull run, at least at this point in time yet. But it's yeah, man, life has been going really good. I've actually been working on getting some medications dialed in. We've talked a little bit about that, and
Hmm.
uh, and that's something that even though I'm not advocating for the pharmaceutical industry, there's a time and a place to take medications, and that's something that's working out for me now. And yeah, just taking things one day at a time, but definitely still adhering to the plan. And there are many things coming up, and we've talked about them here a little bit off air, and we'll be able to start sharing those things here soon. But tonight, I think we were going to talk a little bit about savings, right?
Yeah. This is something I felt that has felt dear to me because I wasn't. I was a split when I was a child when it came to savings because I had one parent that was really good at it and I had one parent that wasn't really good at it. And as I got older, I adapted more of the ways of the parent that wasn't the greatest at it. So I wanted to for this episode, get to the root of that. And, I've thought this one out a little bit. And I think this time, Dunamis, I want to give you the old interview. How does that sound? I think you've interviewed me a few times here. I think it's time for me to turn it around.
That sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, I'll make it easy. I'll start first, but the first thing that comes to mind is why saving money feels harder now than ever, you feel?
Well, I'd say inflation has been something that has, in in particular, caught up and accelerated. I think Trueflation is showing that it's the rate of increase has slowed down to now below 2%. But we have to remember that that's just the rate at which prices are still going higher, right? So we had a period of time, from about 2021 through, 2022, where really our purchasing power decreased quite a bit. And the problem with that is if you were saving dollars during that time, I think we were just also talking offline about how, you still get a $5 tip, from if you're a pizza delivery driver, or if you're tipping your pizza delivery driver, it might still be a $5 tip. But that $5, you know, 20 years ago, even, which is when I started delivering pizzas. And that $5 back then, I mean, you had $5 menus at fast food places. You could buy a
Right.
lot with $5 back then, and it's just not the same anymore. And I think the problem is you try to save, but it's you're if you're saving in dollars, the purchasing power literally is going to go away in the next few years, on whatever you're saving. So it feels harder because it is harder.
Yeah, there's I feel like that leads into the next one, that fear now, that scarcity. And it may not even be, well, a few things, but food, product, but just the scarcity and the actual value of the dollar, the fear of the value of a dollar not being anything at all. Um, and and now you create this mindset now of like how culture teaches spending and not preservation.
Yeah, if it's not only spending what you have because food is more expensive. I mean, everything costs a lot. You have to keep up appearances. That's sort of where the culture and society comes in. You're generally going to struggle to make what you need to make in order to do that. So what a lot of people do is they use credit. Use your credit cards. People spend money, take out loans. You know, to buy a car. I mean, it's very commonplace to use debt in order to offset what you haven't saved for.
Right. It's funny when you say it out loud. uh,
Yeah,
it's funny when you say it out loud. And see, now with that being said too, man, it's like we've kind of diminished that self-respect. You said it here just a moment ago, the image, to keep up with the image, and people look at somebody who has a budget of 50 bucks or 70 bucks at a grocery store, and a lot of that are, probably people in fixed incomes, but just even somebody who just may have a regiment and just says this is what I spend on this, and they've got their bills on lock. And to me that's more self-respect, not restriction. But again, just that image and that the culture of spending, it gets looked at as somebody who um, doesn't have a lot, or it's like they look at that as the poor man's mentality. Ironically,
yeah. There's a lot of people that have made millions of dollars during times when they lived like they were poor. And
right?
that's really takes us to the crux of what saving is. There's two things that are important for saving. One is you have to make money, right? You have to have income, um, and then you have to restrict your spending. So you have to use both of those things in conjunction. And you know, Dave Ramsey is a guy that talks about this sort of premise a lot. But I've always also thought about your income or your earning potential as your offense, and your spending or your lack of spending as your defense. You know, and when
Mm,
you can play good offense and good defense, that's when people become wealthy.
yeah, absolutely. It's not about the money; it's about control.
Yeah.
hmm And a positive connotation, I should say. And I feel that, speaking of connotations, I feel that just a bit esoteric with money. And we talked about this a little last week too. And obviously we've had our off conversations as well. But this whole idea of money being the root of all evil. Now, on the one hand, I
The
Okay,
Yeah,
maybe you
so
don't want.
it's it the
Go ahead.
that's actually a misconception. The what the Bible actually says is the love of money is the root of all evil.
There you go. Yes, I was going to say let's put some texture in that. Absolutely. Yeah, it's the intentions, the intentions that
Yeah,
you have, and, these evil intentions with this money, then yeah, of course, it's going to be a root to your evil. But money itself is not the root of all evil, especially when we speak about having everything in abundance, and yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, money itself is very important, and it can be vilified, and it's it's energy. It's really what we need to think about. Well, the money actually serves quite a few different purposes. You've mentioned currency. Money is a good money is both a store of value and a currency. But money can serve different purposes, and different kinds of money serve those purposes better than others. So, what I know that was just a bunch of words, but the what we have at this point is fiat money, right? So
Yeah.
you have stuff like gold, you have silver. There's different things that can be money and are considered money. There's your credit card, right? That's money just like anything else, and all these different types of money. Um, some are more difficult to spend. Cash. There's places you can go now, and they'll say they don't take cash, right? Um,
Hmm.
so there's different forms of money, and they all serve a different purpose. Bitcoin is also a form of money, and the problem is you should be able just to earn US dollars and save US dollars and then spend US dollars down the road. And the problem with that is that they don't hold their value, you know? So the US dollar is not a good store of value, even though it's a decent currency.
Mm.
But yeah, I think that a good money is a store of value. You should be able to save it. And in the future, it should be able to buy just as much for you or more. It should really buy you more in the future than what it did when you put it aside.
So, what would you say your early relationship with money was like?
My early
Just
relationship, I
growing,
would say, was
yeah, like growing up, and just your house, and like how was money viewed, and how that shape your mindset on how you looked at money.
um, I don't know if I had necessarily the healthiest relationship with money, but I received allowance, and I typically spent my allowance rather than save my allowance.
Hmm.
And
Same.
I as soon as I had enough to go get some candy from the store across the street. Um, but I never really was taught a lot about money until I was in my 20s at least. So a lot of what I've learned about money's been in my adult life.
I would say the same. I didn't, well, I got the allowance, but like you said, as soon as I had enough to get whatever I was wanting to get, and I guess in some ways I'd save up to get those things. It wasn't like I would get something every week. It would be maybe a couple weeks. So I guess I learned a little bit. Shout out to the parents. But yeah, I think my thing was early on, I had not necessarily at 17, but like my early 20s, I had some good jobs, and I got paid a decent amount, and for what the value of a dollar was then, and the responsibilities that I didn't have then, I wasn't as responsible with my money for sure. I definitely wanted to be more on the image side of things, and have more of that kind of outside gratification versus longevity. And I think about the thousands of dollars that I've just spent. And, um, really, I can honestly say that, out of all things, Music has definitely been one thing that throughout those times I've always looked at as an investment to, put new things into it, whether it be software, microphone, or pop filters, or stands, or, whatever it was to just be a better performer. But all other than that, I'm a foodie, man. So that in itself, you know what? I don't really feel sorry for getting good food. I don't, because there's so much of an emphasis on that anyway, and a lot of our core foundation is that when it comes to getting better food, one better food is just, if you want my personal opinion, us growing the food because we know exactly where it's coming from. But I digress. But just taking that effort to put something better in your body. Um, but anyways, it wasn't until I got a book called Dave Ramsey, and it was the Total Money Makeover, and that's when Dave was hammering in my head that it's your fault and you need to pay your debt.
Yeah.
So at that point, that's when I started to kind of shift my mindset a little bit more. And obviously, you get older, things start to accumulate, and bills and priority becomes a necessity. So yeah, I think life kind of forces you that you either get with the program or just you have a poor mindset, right?
Yeah, I think that that's the default, right? Is to and that was another problem that as soon as I was 18, I got a credit card, right? I got my first
Mhm.
credit card offer, got started with that, and I don't put the blame on them, on the credit card companies, even though they offer them to students in college,
Mhm.
um, but it's definitely something that started me on the wrong kind of relationship with money for sure at that point.
Yeah. So, what would you say, like, money meant in your household? Like, what did it mean to your parents?
My my parents were fairly responsible in terms of paying paying down their debt and having a plan, in terms of not getting into credit card debt, and and had a plan for paying off a mortgage. So I'd say my parents were always, and I think a lot of people in their generation as well, had a good understanding of what it meant to, at least for them, the American dream was buying a house, and paying that house off. That's sort of a big a big thing,
Yeah.
So
Makes me think when you're a parent, you're raising your kid, and you have that. Everyone says it. Almost everyone, they want to give their kid everything that they didn't have, and how much of how that could be a negative thing because they kind of forget some of those core values because you've given them these things that you haven't had, and now there's this entitlement that comes with that, like things should be expected instead of you miss a few parts of that element that is like the 2 year versus the 10 year of paying your house off and putting that in priority, retrospect. What do you think?
I think I think that a lot of this systems are broken now. You know, um, I think that I think the American dream doesn't really exist in the same way it did when our parents were young.
Mm,
And I think to get ahead takes a good deal more risk than we would like. I think that's why a lot of us got into crypto. And I for me, I think getting ahead now just takes being it takes all kinds of skills, and but One of them is like just as a quick example is understanding right now what's going on with silver, right? Um, if I was saving money in silver, if I wanted to take full advantage of that right now, I might be selling some silver. Like there's now silver can keep going up. I'm not saying that things can go up a lot, but silver is sitting in the $90 range, which is around 3 times what it was, not too long ago. So that those types of moves when they happen, the longer you're around, some of these spaces, especially in crypto, there's more often than not times where I saw tokens move rapidly in price, and I didn't sell or I held through. We all talk about return round tripping it, and that happens if you don't take advantage of situations. So you see silver go from $30 to $90, and you have some silver. I'd sell a little silver. Not financial advice. It's not what we offer here, but that's not when I'd be running out buying a bunch of it. That's what a lot of people do though. They see a price shoot up like that and they go, "Oh gosh, I got to get me some before they're all out." And I promise you, there is more silver that will come up out of the ground. Um, it's not as rare as gold. So, at some point the price is probably going to come back down. I don't know what it's going to come down to, but I'll probably be buying some of it when the price comes down. The trick is you don't want to be hanging on to dollars forever. If you're saving your money, I like to think of this is where I'm going to give a little practical advice. I know I've been kind of rambling tonight, and it's sort of a tough evening for me. I apologize to the audience, but some of the practical advice here would be that I think you should separate savings out into different buckets, and you have to be able to think strategically in this day and age, in the 2020s going forward. And, if I'm saving something in cash or if I'm saving in dollars, it's probably something short term. I'm saving up for a down payment on something, or I'm saving up for, I need a couple $1,000s for this or whatever. That I'm going to save up in dollars because it's the easiest for me to pay for that thing, whatever I'm saving up for. And in the amount of time I can save up that money, the currency value is not going to change that much. Next to that, if you're saving for something bigger, more long term, and it doesn't have to be retirement, I would say there's medium term things you sign. You might save up for a big vacation, or you might save up for, I don't know, to buy an entire car. you know, those sorts of things you might not want to save in cash. It might take you too long. You might, if you were holding $40,000 in cash from 2019 until now, you've lost a lot of value in that $40,000 of cash that you were holding. So, that's where if, again, none of this is tonight is financial advice at all. But if you're one of these sophisticated financial people, they use things like U.S. Treasuries or different yield bearing assets. So you put your dollars in something that's going to give you 3% or 4% or 5% or whatever it's going to give you back in yield, so you have more dollars. I think that I think it just depends on what your strategy is, what works for you. But at least having an understanding. This is really what we're going for in this is have an understanding of the fact that the government prints this money out of thin air. It's created through the process of loans. If people want to get technical and fight me in the comments, um, but loans are given out to people, which creates money, which goes into the system, ultimately from the Federal Reserve, and that additional money flowing out into the system makes your existing dollars worth less, and it happens in rounds. The Federal Reserve goes through QE, and we've ended the last 5 years of monetary restriction, you know, and it looks like the Federal Reserve is getting ready to print a bunch of money again. So if and when that happens, well, we just won't say if, we'll just say when that happens, that's going to it's going to hurt everybody in the long term, but it's going to take a while for it to hurt. And in the short term, you might see asset prices, pump higher. And just recognizing that these cycles happen, and you know not buying gold or silver at the top, or buying Bitcoin or crypto at the top, but at least sticking around long enough to watch the charts, and buy some of these assets. If you're going to buy them when they're cheap, buy them when people are not really talking about them so much. I don't have very super sophisticated advice because I'm not a financial advisor. We're not giving financial advice. But, just one of the things I would suggest is to educate yourself in terms of what money is. One of the books that I loved was The Bitcoin Standard, and it teaches a lot about these money principles.
Hmm. Yeah,
So,
and what I heard, I heard a lot. And what I want, some key points that I want our audience to take away. Number one, this is not financial advice. That's number one. Number two, savings being used as leverage and not fear, and just that piece of having options, like you said, people that have these high yieldings, that at 3-4%, that's incredible. That's the long game. And it also made me think about where retirement's going to be, when I'm at an age of where they deem retirement, because the age is just getting higher and higher. And the thing is, the benefits for people in retirement, with these fixed incomes, my mom is, yeah, I have two moms, but my other mom, she has, her stuff, and she's very smart. She's very, very wise with her money, and she's taught me a lot on that side as I've gotten older. But even with her being on a fixed income, she just doesn't have that disposable income, like she used to, and a lot of people don't. So just that, and people comfort buying things, because it may not be there. And dude, these are the same, like we talked about this off air, dude. It's the same stuff, and we were talking about it differently. We were talking about global, but it's the same tactics. It's the same tactics. Buy it now before it's too late. If you call now, you'll get an additional one for free on us. Call this number. And it's like, oh my gosh, I see it on basic cable. And I'm like, well, I know what demographics this is targeted for. It's like, but people don't have that awareness to see that. And they just see it as a commercial, with a product on it. And they don't see the psychology behind what they're actually trying to do. And it's no different than going to a grocery store, going to a mall, and going into certain places, and they play certain types of music. That's not because they found a playlist that they like. That's a playlist that's actually designed to get people to buy things in their stores. So it's like, think about what they did back in World War II, with the disruption of the frequencies and all of that, whatnot. I hate to continue to get esoteric, but again, all this stuff ties into each other, in the grand scheme of things. And it just goes back into all of this being into one. And again, just there's more to be said when you can look back and have those means for not just the rainy days, but the any days. Have the means for an any day, and the freedoms that brings you, and we work so much in this world that we really have forgotten about our families, and that's torn us apart. And it's I don't know if sad to see is the word. I manage my expectations well enough that I can only control what goes on over here. Um, it's just that we always talk about, from a political standpoint, the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, and yet we're always blaming somebody. And you can fight me in the comments, and I'm sure many people will, and give me a lot of history lessons. However, At what point do we all just stop with giving each other the history lessons and say, hey, it's on me to save some money? Whether it's $5, 50 cents, 75, 100,000, it's on us on what like on how we want to be for the rest of our lives. We don't know how long the rest of our lives is, but I don't want to. I don't want to be caught with my pants down anymore, man. From a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do what's within our means to be able to prosper. And for each person, that's going to be quite a bit different. And for me, it's, I'm working with less here recently in a lot of ways than what I have in the past. But in other ways, I'm much richer. So
Hmm.
it's interesting, so much of this is psychological. It's exactly the games that these, or corporations play on us, but it's also the games that go on inside of our own heads in terms of what we think we need and what we want versus what we really need, and what the universe has already provided for us.
Hmm. Definitely, man. Just getting back into that rhythm of just being one. Go hug a tree, guys. Give you a little bit of comedic relief there.
Yeah.
But to jump back on topic too, something that I've talked about, and we've both alluded and said it 1,000 times, but not only saving money puts you in a better position for those any days, but how it buys time. And that's the number one thing that wealthy people have the most of, and that's time. They buy their time. They hire assistants to manage the schedule, and this person to do that and this person to do that, because the more time you have, the more you can utilize the 24 hours in a day. We all get the same 24, but what's always the one thing? Man, there's not enough time in a day. I got to do this, I got to do that, and da 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 da, and there's not enough money for me to get this, and there's not. So just, we're really in this. The solution to having the money is to get that time. And how do we change the narrative from having the time already versus getting that time back? Because that mentality of just getting that time back, we're admitting, that, well, yes, just by design, but like time was lost. But there's already a mentality that's been established that time can be lost. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I think part of that is the marketing too, man, because you have you have this struggle for convenience. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
That that's been sold to us. I do think that people, that you're absolutely right. Like, nothing you said is wrong at all. The people that have money do have more time because they're able to pay for those things, and or have other people do those things. Um, it's not always a one-to-one trade, and sometimes you get more by doing the thing rather than paying somebody to do the thing for you. But
Mm.
I definitely agree that money can buy that convenience. The problem is, what else is a side effect of that convenience? And that's where we've talked about things like food, where you know I can I can stay at home. I can bake my own bread, and that's going to take time.
Hmm.
Or I can go to the store and pick up some bread that's already baked, that has a bunch of ingredients that I can't pronounce, right?
Right. Right.
So so if I do that, I'm going to have a lot more time. I can spend more time with my family. I don't have to bake the bread. But if I do that every day, and over time, over my entire lifetime, what else is going to be the result of that? And I think that's where it's the money for convenience thing has these false truths. You know, there's things that don't quite work out. There's unintended consequences, you know, and I'm feeling like a big part of my life is to at least now is to undo some of that convenience and say, look, how can I be a little bit more inconvenienced? You know, if it saves me a little money, at least in the short term. And but but you're absolutely right, and I think that the way to win going forward, at least for me, and hopefully this advice helps other people as well, is to I'm going to start trying to live within my means and do things so that I can save. And but then what you're talking about, that convenience, is I want to work some convenience back into my life, but I want to try and do it in a way that's going to be healthy, right?
Hmm.
So that's tough, though. So some of that can happen with regenerative agriculture, and this is where again I'm talking more specifically about what I want to do. But if you're, for example, wanting to grow your own food, if if you have chickens, just as a quick example, that's I today I go to HEB at least every other day because
Hmm.
we'll eat anywhere between 6 to 10 eggs in a day, depending on how many people we got here in the house, and we just like to eat a lot of eggs. But if I had, let's say 16 chickens outside, I would go and get those eggs fresh every day. I would not need to go to HEB. That would save me time. It would save me money. It would be super convenient, and it would increase the health of myself and the family rather than decrease our health. So that would be a way that I can build efficiency into my life to make my life happier and save money and save time. So the tricky thing is I think I'm going to have to figure out ways like that I can, you know, rather than the tried and true quick approaches of, hitting up KFC on the way home.
Yeah, I think you hit the head on the nail with that. You're what you're talking about is how creativity and savings coexist, and is it really create like it is creative, right? But is it really creative just in the sense of like we're going back to more of what our families used to do, and some of their families, and how they utilize more of the land to eliminate some of those things that you go to the grocery store for. And I mean, when you really think about everything and what you're currently doing, and what I'm in the process of doing, is you're talking about herbs, necessary herbs, and things that can be transformed into other things to where you literally don't need to go to a store. You can make your own spices, you can have your own, garnishes, and, your meats, a couple cattle. Dude, I realize it only costs $5,000 to get a freaking horse. You know what I mean? It's like, and I'm not killing a horse, guys. I'm just saying, like, from the standpoint of like, I could buy a car for 6,500 bucks or get a horse on 200 acres, or what I mean. And it's just and feed the horse off of the land. I'm not saying I'm
Yeah,
not riding the horse everywhere, but there's just ways that, again, I can apply my money and have it work for me in ways. And I think those are the things that we miss. And you know what? I will say this. I will say this. I've got to give it to the younger generation, because the movement that content creators have is incredible, and I feel that it's inspired so many people to jump in on social media and find different ways to monetize themselves. I don't care how crazy it is, man. I think that it's dope. Um, that you see even an older generation of people that are making pies, and they're doing stuff, man, and they're breaking those generational curses, and they're finding different means to just be more comfortable than this American dream that we've been sold.
Yeah, I definitely think that the thing that we were told, was the American dream is not it's it's not what it was. It's not there was a point in time where it was much more feasible than it is now. We'll put it that way. And you know, you can still be socially and move up. If you start out and you don't have a lot of money, there's definitely ways in the United States to make a lot of money. But I'm starting to realize that maybe that isn't everything, and or even nearly the most important thing. I think that for somebody that isn't inclined to start a big business or doesn't want to become a millionaire or a billionaire and just wants to get by, I think that it takes a little bit more strategy just to live a regular life these days than it did, when I was growing up or when my parents were growing up. I think nowadays you have to think about things like this. Um, I've I've personally done all right with just precious metals and buying them slowly over time, and then you know I've done all right with what silver and gold have done here recently, and that's it's just one of these things. It doesn't have to be super complicated, and everyone's going to have their own strategy or way to do things, but like most most people out there just don't think about inflation and don't understand why they keep trying to save, put money in their savings account, and it gets harder and harder, and then something happens. The difficult thing is when you have an emergency come up or something that was unexpected, and then the savings has to get dipped into. And so that's also why Dave Ramsey talks about there being, how important an emergency fund is. So as you're saving, it actually kind of makes sense to have an emergency savings first, and then as you set that up, then to actually start to save for other things after that.
Hmm. Real life, man. I think we covered a lot of tracks this evening, man. I do, and I think that we definitely should have, another episode that, gets more practical into, certain kinds of, savings that, you could put your money into, and even talk about equity and what that means, and even just some of the business ventures as well. Like if, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, we can talk about that in one episode, or even what you had mentioned earlier about the guys that are getting by, you know what I mean, that just want to be comfortable, and they're not looking for all of that, and they just want to be able to, sustain and just have a good amount for them and their kids and their kids. And I think we all want, a freedom in some capacity, and it's just different in people's lenses, and I think as I've gotten older, me personally, it's just living somewhere where it's really quiet and I'm able to just settle in with my thoughts, and uh, I don't see anything more better than that. But yeah, yeah. What do you think? We let them off the hook this
Yeah,
evening?
absolutely. Well, it's those are all things worth saving up for, and the quiet, peaceful life. And yeah, I definitely think we've covered a lot. And next week we'll definitely follow up with something else practical, I'm sure. And I think that this money topic has been important for us since the very beginning, and yeah, we'll definitely hit it up again.
Yes,
But
sir.
hey, until next time, Izzy, never give up the fight.
Until next time, never give up the fight.
You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane, pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test and expect nothing less, your check is I'm chess, what's happening next, yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson, he got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take your redemption. Just kill, no discretion, your mind is a weapon. 11-11, it's time for progression, You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they drag the chains, you can say no, free me. So he's been looking for somebody who could save him, instead of searching inside for what they gave him. A strong will, strong mind causes mayhem. We could change the world, change times, rearrange them. Staying on pace, running the race. Life is a chase, I don't want a place, I wanna be first. Work till it hurts, dehydrated thirst till I'm in a hearse. High ambitions in the right mind can take you so far. It's like you lived a few lifetimes. Take off from a break off from the weak minds, they can stay soft. You can change lives, you create thoughts, never waste time. You got one shot, you got one life, better pop off. What do you like? Make a dream job. No 9-5, no mean boss, just my life and free thoughts. You could try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. People like sheep move feet, hurt it easy. You don't wanna be fast asleep when they scheming. Better stand tall, ready for a fight, believe me. When they drag the chains, you can say no, free